What I think is also important, especially in the Black community, I'm saying this from a person of color, is inspiration. Not necessarily the director right now that's going to ask for the same deal as Ryan Coogler, but the director in 10 to 15 years who's seeing this right now, who's making indie films in their basement, who's running around the streets of New York City creating these indie films, and they can see this now as a path forward.
Jordan, what's happening, man? How you doing today?
I'm great, dude. I actually worked on the stoop this morning. I went outside with my computer and worked on the stoop in the sun. It was really nice.
Real, that's Brooklyn stuff right there. We like that.
I know. I'm about to close an apartment, and all of a sudden, I'm a stoop boy. It's the first time I've ever been on a stoop. But
That's
I'm
funny.
good.
Love
How are
it.
you doing, man? What you
Love
been
it.
up to?
Nice. I'm good. Yeah, it's been a good weekend. Had some family in town, so cannot complain. And very excited for today's conversation. Planning to do a bit of a deep dive into Ryan Coogler and his deal with Sinners. I know this has definitely been sparking a lot of major conversation in Hollywood around creative ownership, legacy, who gets to control the stories and culture that shape America, both on the screens and behind the scenes. So I think this is has been a lot of conversation around this, and we're really excited to help deconstruct some of the different deal points that have kind of brought this to the forefront within the entertainment industry and beyond.
Absolutely. So let's jump into it. First of all, shout out Ryan Coogler. This is a crazy situation for us to talk about, and I'm excited to talk about it. So for those that don't know, Sinners is a movie that was recently released. It's a horror film, and it opened up to a lot of fanfare. They had 60 million in the first week, and then they're probably going to hit that again in the second week. We're still figuring out what those second numbers are. But the controversy around it / exciting thing around it is how Ryan Coogler actually negotiated his deal with the studio. So according to The Hollywood Reporter and a bunch of other places, Coogler's deal with Warner Bros. Includes 3 highly unusual points, and we'll illustrate how the points are different from what studios normally do as well. So he has final cut rights, giving him creative control over the finished film. He has first dollar gross, meaning he receives a share of box office revenue from the very first ticket sold, not just after studio recoups his costs. Finally, ownership rights, and this is a big one, convert to Coogler after 25 years, allowing him to control the film's future distribution, sequels, licensing arrangements, and they almost never go to creators, especially Black filmmakers. So I'll pass it to you, Sam, to kind of give some historical precedent here for how big of a deal this is.
Yeah. And one other deal point I'll just call out is the back end on premium video on demand and streaming. So typically, if you're big films, you might see it on like Amazon Prime, where for the first couple months, 3 or so months after a film has been released, you might have to pay $19.99 to rent it versus the standard $2.99 for other films. So that's considered premium video on demand. And most often, folks are really only different directors or filmmakers are only getting some sort of percentage split of that if the picture is in profit and production costs have been recouped. And similar to Ryan getting an undisclosed percentage of true gross from day one in box office sales and general profit, he's also getting this immediate slice of premium video on demand, which is also just kind of another factor that's working in his favor. Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. I think he in recent interviews too has said has his reasons to believe as to why this is getting so much buzz by way of the fact that nothing in his deal structure is truly new. There have been other filmmakers that have done it in the past. When asked point blank as to what those what he thinks that may be, he said he'd rather not share. But I do think it is interesting to look as to how this has happened across other filmmakers. So if you look at, there's a couple interesting examples here. One, Christopher Nolan, Oppenheimer. There was actual no IP reversion, like with Ryan Coogler getting full ownership back after 25 years. But he did have total creative control on the film. 20% first dollar gross, 100-day exclusive theatrical window. And this last part's really interesting from my perspective too. There was a 3-week blackout where no other Universal title could open near his, such that they were really kind of carving out the lane to maximize promotional power surrounding the film Oppenheimer.
You know what's crazy? Just to sort of interject for a second, is this whole creative control thing. Like, who is at these studios saying, you know what, I know better than Christopher Nolan? Look, we have to change the film. I know better than Ryan
Yeah.
Coogler. We have to change the film. That's something that I actually wasn't aware of until the Sinners deal was revealed. I was like, wait, people don't have creative control. The directors don't have creative control. Like,
Yeah.
what exactly is
Yeah.
changing it, and who's changing it, and who feels so empowered to change it? That's just so bizarre. But
Yeah. I agree that it's better that if a director has creative control, but I think even if you look metaphorically within the music industry, think about how like A&Rs will try and sculpt a sound as if they know the broader commercial appeal and want to try and direct an artist to go one route versus another. You see that a lot in the music industry. I think with filmmakers, yeah, I mean, just to hear the other perspective, not that I believe in it or it's right. Um, Especially with more, if a major film studio is putting up all the funds on a budget, all the funds to handle production, and they have a 50-year plus track record of releasing big films, if they sign away complete creative control and have no ability to actually approve or give input the final cut, um, then that becomes very risky, especially if it's like a younger filmmaker that hasn't had as many reps or you can't necessarily like stand behind. I think that's ultimately too why Ryan has been able to create leverage to negotiate these deal points. I think he's driven over $2 billion in like gross revenue across all the
yeah,
different films
I
he's been
guess
a
you're
part
right.
of.
This is the
So I
case in
think
point right here.
yeah. So I think for him, it's like, okay, like he clearly knows what he's doing, backed up by the numbers. So I think at that point now he can push for that, having that final cut and that creative control. And I think it's been proven historically that that's going to be worthwhile and that you don't want people to interfere with his artistic vision. Um, a couple other quick examples here. Yeah, Tyler Perry, the entire Medea universe. Tyler Perry retains full copyright on every stage play, film, and TV series via Tyler Perry Studios. Distributors get time limited licenses only. Some extra sweeteners like 100% of back end. And a couple other examples here. Let's see. Mel Gibson, Passion of the Christ. It was self-financed and then sold to Newmarket just at a straight distribution fee, while Iconic Productions kept all rights. 50% of profits on top of ownership, plus full marketing sign off and authority. I think even the marketing sign off was another point in the Ryan Coogler deal where his production company, at the very least, is like heavily consulted in the process. Oftentimes, these film studios will just buy out the rights or help fund the film and then take over all ownership on creative marketing and rollout. So it's interesting for him to be able to have a bit more control and contribution towards that process.
And to push back a little bit against Ryan Coogler in a good way, all of these things have bits and pieces of his deal, but not all of them. So to say that things like this have happened before, they have. Things like this have happened before, but not in this all inclusive way. I think that's the most interesting part about it. I mean, you're saying all these examples, other than with the potential example of Tyler Perry, who seems to just own everything. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure what gross is like in terms of films and what his recoupment is, and if there is a recoupment and things like that. But none of these seem as all encompassing as Ryan Coogler's. Do you agree?
Yeah. I can't say I know that for a fact, and I will say that
Face
I
at
feel
face
like he's
value.
said explicitly at face value, even just based off what Ryan Coogler has been saying, is like the deal itself is not too disruptive. The reason it's getting a lot of notoriety is more so because of the fact that he's setting a new precedent, largely for creators from marginalized
Yeah,
backgrounds. So I believe
facts,
that. So I
facts.
think it's probably a little bit more disruptive by way of all these deal points for Ryan Coogler coming from a marginalized background. And I do think that is a very positive step forward when it comes to creating a more equitable industry, not only for folks from marginalized backgrounds, but even if we do extrapolate beyond just that, I think generally we're seeing the power dynamic shift such that creators and filmmakers are being able to participate in more direct ownership beyond just pure work for hire, get a little bit of a flat fee or a payout with a little bit of upside. Now it's like, okay, this is really going to be my life's work. Like I should have ownership and be able to participate in the long tail revenue opportunities surrounding the IP that's being
Right,
created.
right. You're right. And also things, people saying this is classic Hollywood, right? It's risky when it's a person of color. but it's smart when it's not a person of color. I'm sure all these deals, I know for a fact that once upon a time in Hollywood, Tarantino had a pretty good deal and made out pretty well on that. That was praised as being intelligent, smart. Ryan Coogler does something similar, just taking it a half a step further. It's risky. Who knows if it's going to work? Um, Hollywood is notoriously one of the last industries to catch up to the 21st century, and he's smart, I guess, as from black man to black man to say I'm just going to leave. I'm not, no comment. We already know what the comment would be. Just let the art speak for itself. Um, but really awesome to see. Black man to black man. This is a really
Yeah.
awesome deal to see.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I think even too, just for somebody at his age, I think he's under 40 years old,
Right.
just being able to make his mark in the way he's already done. Like he's still, the grand scheme of things, relatively early in his entire career arc. So to be at this stage with this much success and even just blowing it out of the water the way, I mean, in the opening weekend, $61 million. I think it's phenomenal to see. Excited to see this. I also know too, even Ryan is mentioning that this isn't necessarily a deal that he's trying to do across like all of his different films. And I can't wait to see it. Definitely am very excited to do so. But it does seem as if a lot of the themes in the film are really around Black characters
Yeah.
fighting for ownership of their culture and art, which is one thing that he used too, is to really help drive the point home and land this deal as to why it's such a critical theme of the film. Therefore, want to make sure this is a part of the actual deal structure as well. So I think it's great to see that he was able to make this happen in the way he
It's
has.
also funny, unrelated to the deal, but related to the creativity of the movie. Jordan Peele makes all these scary movies. They are critically acclaimed. Ryan Coogler makes a scary movie, critically acclaimed. Obviously, the undertone in a lot of these movies is race and tension between different races and what the black experience is like. And people are like, these scary movies are so awesome. It's like, yeah, partially that's what it's like being black in America, and people just aren't realizing it. Like, of course the best scary movies are the ones that have undertones of race, because that shit is scary. Like all these black people are coming out with scary movies that are sort of based off the black experience, and everyone's freaking out about it. Like, oh shit, we
That's
didn't know.
funny.
Oh damn, but art imitates life, life imitates art, so to speak, not to say a cliche, but just from my perspective, when I see these films, I clearly get a sense of, I can relate to them, even though I'm not necessarily in the same position as the filmmakers. So you never really know what's gonna
Yeah.
hit. You never really know what's gonna be impressive to an audience and why it's gonna be impressive to an audience and what'll actually push a narrative across the finish line. But I still need to see Sinners. I heard it's pretty good. It's everyone's been talking about it. There's a lot of social chatter about it. I still want to see it. I just saw a tweet
Yeah.
from Ben Stiller that actually called out, I think it was Variety, but I'm not actually sure, for a headline about 60 million not being enough because the budget was 90 million. So they said, oh, it was sort of like a backhanded compliment towards Ryan Coogler, and he was like, why would you make a headline like this? So we're sort of seeing in real time pushback from people about the narratives that are portrayed against potential black directors and black media and things like that in real time,
Yeah.
which is super
Yeah.
interesting.
For sure.
How,
So
yeah, you was about to ask me a
I'm
question. I was about
curious
to ask
how
you a
you.
question. Go ahead, ask me a question.
Yeah. So how do you think this deal might change the power dynamics for future Black filmmakers and other creators in the industry?
So if we zoom out a little bit to the creator economy in general, there are other industries that have already kind of come to this reckoning, and Hollywood might be one of the last ones. So in music, for example, there was this huge indie push. I would say in like the mid 2000s, 2000, like Chance the Rapper was sort of the person who ushered in indie rights, and now everybody's asking for label deals that benefit them or no label deals at all. I would say Chance the Rapper sort of popularized that. I think we could see a similar thing happening in Hollywood. The only thing is, I think in the beginning you have to have a lot of power. Like Chance won a Grammy for best rap album off of a mixtape before he was able to do a lot of that work. I think Ryan Coogler, this is going to have to be a really big success in order for that to happen. The thing that's so surprising to me though is that people are questioning Ryan Coogler like he's not a blockbuster director. Like he hasn't directed, like he's not up there with Christopher Nolan, like he's not up there with Quentin Tarantino. So Ryan Coogler was in a like very unique position to do this. But what I think is also important, especially in the black community, I'm saying this from a person of color, is inspiration. Not necessarily the director right now that's going to ask for the same deal as Ryan Coogler, but the director in 10 to 15 years who's seeing this right now, who's making indie films in their basement, who's running around the streets of New York City creating these indie films, and they can see this now as a path forward. I think that's going to be something that's really important. It's not just how does this affect directors right now, it's also how does this affect future generations of directors, and I think this will be really important for that. I do think that there are some people that naturally have more power just because of their backgrounds, history, race, whatever you want to call it, bias, that should ask for this immediately. Like those big directors that I was just saying, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, like for better or for worse, they do have more power in situations like this because of who they are and their backgrounds. They're probably going to be the first ones to start asking for deals like this, you know. But it's this. I'm surprised we didn't talk about on this podcast or other people see the writing on the walls for film because it's been happening in most other industries. We're seeing it in social media. We're seeing it in music. Like now it's just the reckoning for film. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the undercurrent and like tailwind is that what was traditionally controlled and owned by corporations across different entertainment verticals is now being shifted to like the power structures are now slanting towards talent and individuals. I think you're seeing that in the music industry, more independent artists, rather than signing away ownership to different record
Right.
labels. I think you're starting to even see it in the sports industry and kind of looking at like a landmark deal like Lionel Messi getting a percentage of revenue generated by Apple TV signups surrounding MLS, given how
Right.
much of a lift he generated within MLS. I think you're seeing it across these different industries left and right. And I think there's just a massive positive shift in favor of different talent and creators. So I do think we'll see this happen more and more. And I think this will kind of continue to set positive precedents, and I'm really excited too just to kind of see what it's doing when it comes to creating more equitable pathways within these industries by way of the fact that like there may have been some level of progress here, albeit within other pockets. I think now there's this kind of door that's being opened a bit more holistic.
Do you think there's any negative for this power shift at all? And I know we're biased towards saying there is one.
No, I think there's no negative towards this power shift. Yeah, no, I'm excited for more and more filmmakers to be able to have like long-term participation. I think they're taking out a lot of risk by way of investing so much of their time into getting these different films and projects off the ground. I do know that like film in the same way as music, like a lot of films don't turn a profit, so inevitably it's risky, but I think a lot of times like this creates an opportunity for creators and talent to participate in the both risk and reward on a bigger scale. And I think that's just a net positive. I think it's also, if you extrapolate, I think if with this comes more creative freedom for different directors, and over time this can just like lend itself to like better creativity by way of stronger incentives for the actual creatives making all this possible.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think also in terms of the bottom line of we've seen this happen with major labels already to a degree with major film studios. They're going to have to put these into their projections. Like when they give creators so much power over their films, they're going to have to put this into their bottom line, and they're going to have to take this into account when they hire certain directors. I do think we'll see this more and more often, which is obviously good for directors. I also think we may see, and we're starting to see this more, studios that are actually created by directors and by creatives, and that offer these things more often. So really looking forward to that. But very very inspirational story and very inspirational deal from Ryan Coogler and team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I also think too, it probably is going to, I love that there's just this kind of undercurrent as well of different creator powered or creator partnered firms, be it major film studios, be it social media platforms, where there's this undercurrent of like, whoever can create the better, more favorable terms for actual creators will win, because where the most notable influential creators go, as does the audience. So I think this is probably also just going to continue to be a point of competition amongst film studios as to who can create the more enticing deals, because at the end of the day, once you actually do have some sort of film script and treatment all built out, like you have these directors shopping things around. There's definitely lots of facets in these deals around distribution, marketing power, staffing, funding, etc. But it's nice that now within that kind of array of potential deal points comes some of these more creator favorable terms. And I feel like that will be a competitive force that now directors and filmmakers will evaluate more, and different studios will be competing against as to who can create the more favorable terms for the creator to get that creator to move forward with them. So lots of great lessons learned here. Really excited to see this continue taking shape within the broader entertainment industry, film industry, and beyond, and think this is just a really positive precedent example at a very global big stage or screen.
Dope. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for breaking it down.
Yes, sir. You as well. As always, appreciate you all tuning in. We'll be back next week. Until then, we out.